Good afternoon, Jiva. Thank you guys for joining us today. We have another great show that we're really excited to bring to you guys today. I have three different representatives from Jiva. So all of them have played high performance in the past, and they've all been coaches as well as players. So we're really excited to have them here today. We're going to be talking about the high performance experience through Jiva. Really how from a female aspect and how has it really benefited them as a coach, as a player, and even in their careers moving forward. So welcome guys. Thank you guys so much for attending. What I would love to do is I'd like to welcome you guys, had to run through some introductions. And what I'd also like to do is say thank you and ask anyone if they have questions on Facebook to submit those. So we have, as I mentioned, three phenomenal women here today. We have Becca Bergquist, we have Julia Cast, and then we have Erin Lester. Again, all of them have played in a high performance pipeline as a coach and a player, which is really exciting. And then behind the scenes, we have John Titus. Usually I'm behind the scenes. And John is the one that's moderating these sessions. But today we kind of flipped roles. So if you guys have questions, John is moderating our Jiva Live page. We encourage you guys to ask any questions you guys might have. If it's an open-ended question for anyone on the panel, awesome. If it's a question directed towards one of the girls as well, we're open to that too. So we encourage you guys to join the conversation. So with that being said, I'd love just to kind of kick it off by, asking you guys, how have you guys been? I know the world's been kind of crazy. We've all been finding different ways to keep, busy as we're all on the East Coast. So Rebecca, I'm going to turn this over to you. I mean, how have the past couple months been from you or for you?
Overall, they've been good. It's certainly been a transition with the coronavirus going on. I'm a teacher currently of 8th and 9th grade social studies. So, I've been really busy still. Unfortunately and fortunately, I've been super busy considering, we've been kind of sequestered to our homes. But for the most part, it's been good. It's been a lot of learning, a lot of, figuring out how to make life work.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point. I mean, I think all of us have been working in that too. So it's great that you have been able to stay busy and kind of change with everything, which I think is great. So, and actually, can you just tell us a little bit about your background as well? So I know some people definitely watching know you just from your club days and from coaching. But just tell me a little bit about your background. Where'd you play in college? Where'd you play in club?
So I played club for Apex, which is out of Poughkeepsie, New York. I played in college at New Paltz, so I didn't really go far for college. I played there for 4 years, had a blast, had an amazing coach, Matt Joffrey. And then I also coached Apex. Once I graduated from New Paltz, I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to coach at Brockport, which was another SUNYAC Division III school. Where we were pretty successful, and I got to coach under Steve Pike, who was pretty amazing. And then during that same time, I was able to coach and be an assistant coach to Doyle for the National Select. And then I also coached with Caitlin McDonald and Brian Hurler in 2018 with and we played in the international tournament with the youth team. It was pretty amazing. And then this past year, I coached at the high school that I teach at, which is Canastota High School out near Syracuse.
That's great. Yeah, definitely some great coaches, some great names that you just mentioned and, within the region. So awesome. Well, welcome. Erin, I'd like to turn it over to you as well. So if you could just kind of let us know what you've been up to in the past couple months and a little bit about your background.
I have been spending a lot of time with my friends and family for the past few months. I think it's been kind of refreshing to me in a sense that volleyball, we were going tournament every other weekend. And so happens that all my family and friends' birthdays happen to be April, May, and those are the two busiest months for us. So I haven't spent birthdays with them in the past 10 years. So this time I went really all out for all of their birthdays and did different picnics and have been Pinterest for everything that I've been doing. And then my background, I've been coaching with Princeton Volleyball Club for the past 5 years until I moved to Maryland. And then I also won the AVCA Diversity and Inclusion Award, which was pretty cool this year at the 2019 NCAA Championships, which I was really excited about. So,
Yeah.
And then my last thing was the Jiva Select Red Team, which I got to do last summer. But our kids aren't going this summer, which is unfortunate. It was going to be in Pittsburgh, but due to COVID, we are not going this year.
Yes, yeah, I know. There's been a lot of changes that we've had to make. So it was unfortunate we had to change the scheduling. But I think it's exciting still that we can still offer opportunities and different ways for our girls to grow, which is great. And congratulations on the AVCA award. So we're going to get to that a little bit later in the presentation because I think that was such a cool thing that you won. So, and then Julie, I'm going to turn it over to you. So certainly not last, least but not last, or last but not least, I should say. A little bit about your background.
Yeah. Well, I mean, tell you about my background first. I played for Sport Time and Performance. I played for Performance for 1 year, then Sport Time for the rest. And after that, I went and played at St. John's, and then I played in Greece for a little. I played for Jiva for 3 years, and yeah, that's it.
No, that's great. Great. I guess a lot of different teams that you played on, which is really cool. And I'll ask you a little bit about culture later too, because I'm interested of how we've what your position was on each team from the next. So, but what have you been doing the past couple months? I know the world's kind of changed, and you mentioned that you're in Long Island, right?
Yeah. I mean, same as everyone else. It's been kind of weird working from home, but also kind of nice. And it's definitely been nice being able to spend so much time with people that usually my sisters won't be home. Like I wouldn't be spending this much time with my family. So it's been nice being able to spend all this time with people. Probably the hardest part is just staying motivated to keep working out with this weather being too hot or rainy but got to take it as it comes.
I like that, right? Making the best of each situation. So awesome. Well, thank you guys for sharing your backgrounds. You guys submitted bios to me. I looked at all of them, and across the board, you all have very impressive backgrounds. And to me, what I read from that is that it really shows your love of the sport in general. So what would you say that really drew you in as a player that helped you kind of transition and stay involved in the game as a coach? Because a lot of times we lose tremendous players because they're not interested in coaching. And the three of you are great examples that you continued on in a different capacity as a coach. So Erin, I'm going to throw that one over to you first if you want to tackle that. What really drew you in and kept you involved in volleyball?
I think that it became something that I was so invested in. I spent so much time doing this that I wanted to perfect the craft. And then I was like, wow, I'm not playing anymore. So I need to train other people to play. And I really wanted to intervene at an early age for other girls to start, because I think that's really what makes or breaks competition is the age that you start at. And I think the younger you start, the better, especially since the game is all about fundamentals. I had an issue that girls were walking into the gym and we're going over fundamentals, and they're 15, 16 years old. And they're like, oh, what's volleyball? I want to play. So I felt like it was something that needed to be more talked about. And I felt like I could draw them in more so with my personality and yeah, you can have fun, you can play sports, you can do all of it at the same time, rather than just have it be introduced for a season when they're a freshman in high school.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? Keep them involved all season long, year round, right? And get them started young. So, and I think you're right. Fundamentals is huge. And a lot of us overlook the fundamentals and how important they are. So I applaud you for that. So, and how about you, Rebecca? What kept you engaged and kind of kept you coaching?
I think very similar to what Erin was saying in that, once you're done, you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm done playing. What do I do now? And so I kind of thought about it, and I was like, well, all of these coaches put so much into, working on me and making me the best player that I could be. So, and I thought a lot about Bill Doyle, various other, people that were really influential in my own volleyball career. And I was like, how do I give back to them? How do I give back to the new generation? And that's kind of what got me into it, is that, you know, I just felt like so many people put so much time into me as a player. Like, I have to do something to give back for that, you know?
I love that. Yeah. And I think that's a great point too. You know, helping with the new generation to help them learn the game and to give back. I think that's really important. And it's a lot of what we do as coaches. And then Julia, you know, what would you say to that?
I mean, totally agree with Rebecca and Erin. But another thing is, I think just how competitive volleyball is. I mean, I've always been a competitive person. So then, like, once I finished playing, I was like, I still want to be like involved in all that. So like keeping involved in coaching and like you said, like Rebecca said, like having someone to like kind of look up to. Like I wanted to be like that to like to the girls like I'm coaching.
Yeah, that's another thing too, right? I think the world could always use positive female role models. And as a coach, it's really one of the easiest ways to be that role model for young girls. And I don't think, you know, there could be enough role models in the world. So involving, you know, getting involved in something they love and being a role model, I think is huge. So thank you guys. I think that's important for all of us to kind of know why we stayed involved. Because sometimes people think it's for the money, and it's really not. You know, we're there for, you know, to really show our love for the sport. So what I would like to do today, I want to focus a lot on high performance. So we're going to kind of transition from a little bit away from your backgrounds, talking more about your experience. So I'd like to start the conversation with high performance and talking about the experience that you guys have had. And in general, I think there's misconceptions about high performance. So I would kind of love to know from you guys, you know, was there something out there that really surprised you? You know, Julia, I know that you participated with Jiva for 3 years as a junior. Would you say as a player and as a junior, did the tryout process get easier each time you tried out, or were you still kind of biting your nails each time, or did you kind of know what to expect by the time you got to your third tryout?
I mean, I wouldn't say it ever got easier because every year there was always new players, new competition. I mean, every year you knew like what to expect getting in there, but you never really knew who else was going to be trying out there. So just going back to like that competitiveness, like the tryouts were always like such a fun time. Like even if you went there with your friends, like everyone was their own player and like you never really knew what to expect. Each year was like a totally different experience. Sometimes like surprises, like more people would make the team that you didn't think were gonna, or stuff like that. But I don't think it ever got easier. It's always a good competition there.
And that's a great point. I mean, I've seen a number of high performance tryouts since I manage the social media side of it. I'm there kind of holistically looking at everyone, and there's some great competition across the region. So I can agree with you. I don't think it would get easier each time you get out there. So, and then Becca, you know, as a high performance player and then a coach, what surprised you the most when you became a coach? Was there something that kind of you were a little surprised by, oh, the process goes this way, or I didn't realize all the work that was involved, or?
I think you kind of nailed it on the head with the last thing you said. Granted, I was most of the time, you know, just a coach and really just an assistant coach most of the time. But the amount of hard work that everyone who's, you know, the administrators and the organizers, and getting to see how people are registered for just to be able to try out, and then for the dorm rooms once they make it to camp, and the food, and how do we get equipment each gym, and make sure every single coach needs to be there. And once you get involved in that, you realize, you know, when you're a player, you show up and you're like, okay, put my knee pads on and my sneakers on, let's go. But then once you're a coach, you're like, okay, do we have this? Do we have that? What's going on here? This is the schedule. We got, you know, it's so logistically different, and there's so much hard work put in by the people who you coach with. It's pretty amazing to watch and to be a part of. And then also, you know, one other thing that really surprised me, I kind of went into it thinking, okay, I want to give back. I want to, you know, help and just be part of volleyball, compete, kind of like what Julia was saying. But then you also get to meet so many amazing people who are also coaches. You know, some of the best times I've ever had coaching were with some of the people I've met through coaching Jiva HP. So, you know, those are two big surprises, but it's awesome.
That's great. And I think you guys would agree too, the relationships that you form along the way as players and coaches, those are everlasting. So, it might only have been one season that you played with them or one season you coached with them, but during that one season or those couple weeks during high performance, you made a lot of really good memories with each of them. On a coaching side as well as a player. So they're different memories, but they're still memories, which are really great. And then Erin, I wanted to kind of throw it over to you. You've been pretty busy. So you recently relocated to Maryland, which is awesome. And you were awarded the 2019 ABCA Diversity Award for coaching. Tell us a little bit about that award and kind of what it meant to you.
That award was very exciting to me. I think 2019 was my best coaching season overall. I think when I got there, I wasn't really sure what exactly to expect. And the award was really just honoring coaches just of diverse backgrounds, like across every single level, which I think is really important to do anyway. And it just kind of like highlighted like, oh, like we see you going out there, we see you winning games, we see you like achieving things. And I thought that was just really cool of them to do. And then on top of that, I got to go to a bunch of workshops in Pittsburgh and I met some really cool other coaches. I got to network and it was actually really refreshing because throughout the short part of the season that we did get to have this year, I ran into a few of them again. I ran into HP coaches again and like the networking that happened was like really phenomenal across the board. Like I was like, oh wow, like I made a friend and now we're playing each other. Like this is like exciting because like now we don't get to like play each other competitively, but our teams get to play each other. So it's still a pretty awesome experience.
Yeah, I've liked that. And I've noticed as a player and then now a coach, it's fun when you actually are coaching against somebody you know. So it's a different side of the competitive game. So while you're not playing, you still want to beat your friends. So you're trying to kind of pull all your tricks and cards out, get your players to perform so you can go ahead and beat your friend. So playing against people, I think that is always really fun. So the more people, to your point, that you meet and you develop relationships with, I think it makes the game a little bit more interesting as a coach as well. It's awesome. And I guess I would be curious too, this might be a hard answer from you because you did recently relocate to Maryland. Did you notice a difference in like the cultures or the area, kind of thinking about Jersey volleyball to Maryland or even, the clubs? And how did you kind of use your background to help work through and jump into the different cultures that were there?
I definitely think, even though it was a shorter season, I did notice an initial kind of difference between cultures, even of just like the different regions, Jiva versus the way Curva kind of conducts their matches and but I was like, oh, wow, that's a good idea. Like I should tell Jiva about that. Like that might help, or I should tell them what we're doing in Jiva and that might help Curva volleyball run more smoothly. And then even the kids themselves, like how similar to how different parts of the country have their personalities, like the West Coast is one way versus the East Coast versus the South. They kind of like adopt those personalities too within how they play, how they cheer, the way they motivate each other, and the way that you can kind of communicate with them is a little bit different and was a struggle at the beginning of the season. And more towards the middle of the season, we had a handle on it. And then COVID happened at the end of the season. But yeah, I definitely could sense a bit of a difference, but just different, not better, not worse.
Yeah, and it's what I like about volleyball, and I think this probably applies to any sport, is that it's the same sport and principles across the board and across the country, but each part of the country is a little bit different. So, and it's all managed a little bit differently as well, to what you were saying. So it's fun to kind of see the different nuances between the clubs and the regions and the cheers, something as simple as that. So, and even, to the college level, Julia, you mentioned that you played in college and then went overseas to play. So, I would be curious, what were some of the biggest differences that you saw within those teams and culture-wise from playing with?
probably the hardest part was the language barrier, obviously. But other than that, just the speed of the game, that was like the speed and just like the plays, I guess, were the only really huge difference between being here and being over in Greece. But other than that, it's like it is the same game everywhere. It's just like a little tiny bit different, but you adjust and you learn.
Yeah. And would you say participating as a junior athlete in the high performance pipelines that help you with preparing for college and working with the different coaches along the way?
Yeah, of course, because you don't realize how many people really play the game and how many people are going to be play the game different than you play. So as you're playing in all these and coaching, you realize, hey, I could be better at this, or oh wow, she's really good at passing. Like maybe I should watch her and learn from her, or they're good at coaching. Like maybe I should learn from how they're doing it. And I think that's like the main thing that helped like playing high performance was just like learning from everyone around you. Because especially in Jiva, I mean, at least when I was there, it was a pretty small, not too many people. You're seeing the same people every year, every tournament, and then you go out to these big tournaments and you see all these people you didn't even know were playing, and just like learning from them is really what helps, even like in life today.
Yeah, and I agree, right? Each part of the country plays it slightly differently. And especially when you get the international teams that go to the high performance championship, you really get to see the diversity of volleyball. A faster game or a slower game. And just because it's a slower game doesn't mean that it's a not so good game, right? You still can play a slow game, be a very good team as well. And then Rebecca, I'd actually be curious as well. You participated as a junior and then went on to college. What would you say that high performance helped you prepare for college as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think about how long the tournament is at HPs. I think it's 5 days where you play upwards of 2 games a day, I believe. So, it's really intense when it comes to the amount of playing time and then the amount of different coaches who are telling you different things and how to, kind of take that in and understand and make use of everything. When you go to college, it's also a completely different volleyball atmosphere and not even just volleyball. You go to classes and everyone is different, so it kind of it impacts every part of your life. Once I went to college, at least I thought that it was one of those things that, as a team, we collected people from all over New York and New Jersey. And it's kind of the same thing when you go to college, at least for me, everyone was from different parts of the state. And so it was really similar in certain regards, excuse me, which made it kind of more comforting and definitely a little bit easier.
And you bring up a great point, right? When you do enter college, there's a whole new game that you have to play. There's new people, new friends, right? And new systems on the court that you have to learn. And I've been a college coach for 12 years or have 12 years experience with that. And I think that's one of the biggest struggle that I see freshmen have is adapting to being a freshman and making all new friends again. Because for many people, their friends for high school had been the same 4 friends for their entire high school season. So to come in and have to make new friends and find out who is your true friend, plus manage the game, I've noticed that consistently across the board at the D3 level and the D2 level, kind of that learning curve as a freshman. So I think volleyball certainly helps, which helps you break you out of your shell a little bit at least. But Erin, I'd love to know from you. Let's talk about kind of memorable moments. What would you say is probably one of your biggest memorable moments with high performance, whether it was maybe as tryouts or when you went to the championships or, what are you able to share kind of with that?
Probably my 2 most memorable moments were not even when my team was playing, but when we were finished and they went and cheered on the future selects. That was like adorable to watch. And then it was also very interesting to me to watch when they were watching the USA boys play. Like the amount of excitement that they get is like hysterical to me. And so like, I don't know, just that kind of joy, seeing it on their faces and like watching them enjoy themselves and like be passionate about the game to the point where they're passionate when other people are playing, and like watching the little ones play and then watching the boys play is just kind of like great moments to me, and like their faces just kind of stand out in my mind in hindsight, like when I think about like, oh my gosh, like I miss my team.
No, that's a great point. Yeah. And it is always fun watching the different levels, and the little girls and the little boys are always fun to watch to begin with, because they remind you of why you started to play. But then it's also fun to certainly watch the boys, because it's a different game than the females play because of the power that's involved with it. So it's a great one. Julia, what about you? What would you say your favorite memory was? Is there anyone that comes to mind?
Yeah, it's hard to really pick what would be my favorite memory because all 3 years of playing for high performance were so different. But I think just my favorite memory is just really like the relationships I made, and the friendships I've made throughout the time, and like even just coaching now too, like this past season. But I'm still friends with almost every single person I've played with over the past 3 years with high performance. And we've just had so many memories. I can't even like list which one that would be my favorite one.
Yeah. And it is tough at times. So I definitely will agree with that. And before the call, we were talking a little bit too, that both Rebecca and Julia, you guys actually played same year, certainly different age groups, but you ended up playing in the same year, which I think is kind of cool. So while you didn't have memories at that particular time together, there were bigger Jiva memories that you were able to share, like taking a school bus, and having to walk across, a hot parking lot to get to the, facility, things like that. So, and Rebecca, I certainly don't want to leave you out because I think this is always fun to share memories, but what would you say your memory was as well?
Definitely just being able to, I remember actually one time, we were at the College of New Rochelle, and it was tryouts or camp. It was either like the tryout before camp or camp weekend. And it was excruciatingly hot. And so every single girl who was on whatever floor I was on, I think there were about 15 of us, we moved all of our mattresses into the common room because there was one air conditioner in the common room and every other room was hot. And I don't remember who found us, but one of the coaches, when we were all, maybe, 13, 14, 15, found us, was so mad, but they were like, I can't blame you, like you have to be able to sleep to be able to play tomorrow. So I think we ended up all sleeping on that floor, and it was, nobody got any sleep because there was 12, 15 of us all with mattresses in the middle of this common room with one dinky air conditioner, barely, making it cold in the room, but better than our dorm room. And that was just, one of those moments where everyone was like, what's your number? What's your Snapchat? What's your, and everyone was getting to connect. And that was a funny moment for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's what's great too, is there's so many moments and memories that are built off of the court. So to help create those lasting relationships of people that you've played with. And, Julia mentioned that you're still in contact with people that you've played with 3 years ago. So I think it's those memories that really help kind of build those relationships, which is exciting to me. So let me ask you this question. So, and hopefully it's not a tough one, but what's the best piece of advice that you were ever given by a high performance coach? Anyone want to take that one first? Becca, you look like you want to say something.
Is this for anyone? Yeah, I'll so as I said before, Bill Doyle was my coach from 9th grade, and then he obviously does a lot with HPs. I'm not even sure exactly what his title is, but he does a lot. And one thing that he always said, and he instilled it when we were at HPs, even if it was just, him randomly coming into a practice and saying it, but he would always say, make sure to remember the little things. And, to him, that meant obviously like when you're passing a ball, making sure, your elbows are locked, you're doing all of those like fundamental skills, but it also meant cleaning up every single ball after practice, making sure there's no trash under the bench when you leave a game, saying thank you to whoever your bus driver was, and just like remembering those little things, both having to do with every single skill with volleyball, but everything outside of that as well. And that's something that I still use to this day when I've coached any team, and even as a teacher, but then also as just, a person in life. So.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's great advice too. And you're right. I mean, it can apply on the court and off of the court. So how about you, Aaron? Can I toss that question your way?
The best advice I got was also from Doyle, and he said, it was kind of like a domino type theory. He said, if I want my setter to get better, then my passer needs to get better. And if I want my hitter to get better, then my setter needs to get better. And so I really appreciated that. And it's been as simple as it was. And he just told it to me. That was last year. He just told it to me last year. And I don't know, it just had such a tremendous weight on my thought. I was like, wow, as much time as we're wow, I need this, but really we need to get comfortable doing it in repetition. And so I thought that was really kind of profound when he said that. And that is something that every single one of my teams is going to know going forward. And it also just kind of tells the story of teamwork and having a goal and meeting a goal. And if one of us falls, then we kind of all fall.
Yeah. I mean, volleyball's great. It's a true team sport. So you're right. And I think that is great advice as well. So, as athletes, we always try to better the ball. We should always, we have to realize that we're all connected. So our set is only going to be as good as the pass that it was before us. So there's only so much you can better the ball on a consistent basis. So certainly making sure it all kind of falls in line is a great thing. And then Julia, how about you?
I've been thinking about this one since I can't even think of there's just so much that I've learned throughout the past couple of years, but probably just the whole concept of always trying your best, because sometimes you think you're going to give up, and I think just trying your best at all times, even in practice. Sometimes you think, oh, I'm going to take off for this practice, but you have to have that mentality that you always have to be ready and always getting better. And that's something that we were always talking about at St. John's, at least. Is that even practice? You're going to be as good as you were at practice in the game.
And that's great. You need to practice like you're going to play the game. So I think that's great advice as well. So how would you guys say high performance has helped you guys grow as a coach? I mean, you guys have shared little tidbits of advice that you've been given that really resonated with you. Is it the relationships that you made? Is it the learning opportunities? Kind of where's the value of it and how has it helped you? So Erin, can I toss that one to you first?
Mm-hmm. I think that the hands-on learning opportunities, especially being around Doyle and so many other seasoned coaches, has really impacted my teams in a really positive way. And things that I've probably spent 2 months on, I know that Bill Lee gave me advice at the Capitol Hill Classic when I was struggling with my team. And he was like, you know what, just switch to doubles, do it for an entire practice. They just need to get more touches. And I was like, just do doubles for an entire practice? You sure? And I was like, okay, and I did it. The next tournament, my team was second place. I was like, I don't understand how, I've been drilling this, and I don't know, it was kind of be a little bit more loose with your plans and be more open to being fluid and picking up things from other coaches, and that should better your team's game.
Yeah, that's a great advice. I mean, I can tell you I've had practice plans that I've walked in and the girls certainly weren't on board with it. And it's not any fault of theirs. It just wasn't working that day. So certainly being flexible and having it changes, I think that's a huge thing. So yeah. And then Rebecca, how about you?
I mean, it's certainly taught me to just like Aaron was saying, just to be able to take in information from other coaches and be able to put it to use. Being in a gym with Bill Doyle, as we've said many times, Merlin Thompson, John Titus, Bill Lee at one point, it's you have to take advantage of those moments, and it's helped me so much. I think just learning how to, take in information from others and be like, okay, so I'm not totally understanding, or I may not agree with them exactly in this moment, because that's a lot of the time what happens as coaches, and I may not agree with them exactly in this moment, but, they are making a really great point, and let me look at it from their point of view, and trying to learn what it is, what their philosophy is, and why they're looking at it differently than you. And I remember one time with Merlin, I was just kind of like helping him out, and he was just trying to run the quickest one in the middle, like less than a 1 tempo in the middle. And I was like, why? Like, we have 3 weeks to do this. I'm like, why? Or less than 3 weeks. We had, I don't know, 2 weeks to get this prepared prior to going to HPs. And, I couldn't understand it in my own brain. And then I watched him work it for maybe 2 or 3 practices. And by maybe the 4th, they were running it. And it wasn't perfect, but I was like, okay, I understand now. This is why we're doing it, because this is going to be successful. And in order to be, a really competitive team, you got to be able to run a really fast offense out of the middle. And so at moments like that, it's instilled those ideas into me as I coach as well.
Yeah, and that's great too. It's good to see the perspective of everyone else. And I've learned too to question it, and you might not agree, but it's always great to say, hey, can you tell me more about why you're thinking this? So, and then all of a sudden you kind of see it all come together. So it's a great learning opportunities. And then Julia, what about you?
Oh, it's hard to say anything else after what you two just said. But maybe just like to expect the unexpected, whether when it comes to coaching, because like you might think you prepared your team for like everything, and then you get to wherever you're going and the players you're playing are completely not what you were expecting, and you have to change your whole game plan on the court as it's about to be game time. This year was kind of like my first year coaching, and just coaching like side by side with Billy. I learned so much in just like those couple of weeks, and all the coaches that were at High Performance this year. But probably just expecting the unexpected is one of the most important things, I think, when it comes to coaching, because you could be practicing the same thing over and over, and then you get there and it's not even worth it wasn't even like worth you to be doing that, kind of.
No, that is great, right? I mean, you gotta, kind of what Aaron was saying, you need to be fluid and be able to work with it. So, and what you think might be the perfect game plan or perfect practice plan doesn't always work out like that. So I do want to jump in here. We have a question from Facebook, and Facebook is wondering, what are you guys missing this year since we don't have the High Performance Championship? So what's kind of that one thing that you're like, oh man, like I'm going to miss this because we're not going there this year. So the one that quickly comes to mind. Erin took herself off mute. So do you have one?
My dog just ran upstairs. So I was like nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, it's start barking. I think I'm definitely going to miss camp this year. I actually really enjoy the selection process. I really love creating teams and like kind of like figuring out who fits where. And so like, that's something that I was like looking forward to since we left since we left Florida last year. And so as soon as it got canceled this year and I got the email, I was like, well, that's very unfortunate. So that is definitely something that I'm going to be missing this summer.
That makes sense. It's always a fun process, kind of working through and seeing everyone's skills compared to each other and how they're evaluated too, which is interesting. Rebecca, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I'm definitely going to miss being able to learn from these coaches as well. I really only volunteered this past year in a high school setting, and the high school setting is really different than GVHPs. GVHPs typically is a much higher level, and you get coaches from all over that have different philosophies. And so for me in the past, at least, I've been able to continue to learn how to be a better coach, considering how young I am. I mean, I feel like I've got so much to learn. And so, every year I kind of, at least except for last year, but every year I go there thinking, okay, I get to learn something new from someone, and so I'm a little bit sad that I can't do that this year.
Makes sense. And I think that's a great part of being a coach and a person in general, like the drive to continuously learn. So I applaud you in that too. So please keep pushing down that road. And then Julia.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to miss just even like being there and coaching and just being around everyone. But on top of that, I think I'm going to miss like seeing the progress that the girls from last year have made, or like just seeing if if there's new people, seeing like what could have been of this year, this season.
Yeah, and I think we all can agree about that. When you said that, everyone's heads started nodding, so that they do agree. It's fun to see the progress and to watch the young girls grow, which is really exciting. So I would love to know a little bit more, I guess, on how coaching has helped you guys in your career. So we all are coaches, but it's not our full-time job, right? So it's kind of our side gig that we have. We all have other careers. You know, Rebecca, you mentioned you're a teacher. So being a coach, how has that kind of helped you in the workforce? So are there problems that, you know, you're like, oh, I've dealt with something similar on the volleyball court, or I've had to work through that with my girls? Julia, I'd love to turn this over to you. I mean, what would you say, how has coaching helped you with your life in general?
Yeah, I mean, back to like expecting the unexpected. I think that's one thing. In the real world, gotta be ready for everything, especially right now. And on top of that, like just learning how to like learn from others. That's something that is not only like important in coaching, playing, but it's also something that like being a coachable player or like being someone that can take criticism is like something that's really important in the real world and on the court, whether you're playing, coaching, working, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point too. Being open to constructive criticism. So I think that's one of the huge ways that you grow, especially as someone that's young entering the workforce and even older entering the workforce. It's always good to be open to feedback so you can better yourself. Erin, how about you?
I think that it's been most impactful in being a teammate, even in like the workforce, like just being an ally for somebody and like helping other people has been something that's like really my strong suit. And usually like I'm asked to like do more, like do different projects or partner with people outside of work for their other projects. And I think it's because volleyball and like how I've learned to team build and manage relationships that it often like works to my benefit.
Yeah, there's some great examples there too. And then Rebecca.
It certainly helps being a teacher. To be honest, I mean, it helped in my hiring process tremendously, you know, just having it on my resume alone. And then also all the qualities that come along with it in that, you know, as Erin was saying, you know, the teamwork aspect of it. I teach, but I also co-teach. So, you know, my co-teacher and I, we brainstorm and we, you know, pretty much do teamwork 3 times a week, even with this coronavirus going on. So, and, you know, at times that's stressful and at times we don't agree with things, but, you know, being on a team, being a player, learning from other coaches has kind of given me insight as to how to do that in the rest of my life and as a teacher. And fortunately, I have administrators who also like to play volleyball. So whenever we can play volleyball again, I'm hoping to play with one of my principals, hopefully.
No, that is great too. And I mean, what I've heard across the industry as well is volleyball's opened so many doors for different people. It's just another way to start networking, where if you are looking for an opportunity or to find some sort of common denominator, it's really amazing how many people want to talk about the game and are familiar with the game. Or, you know, you could play volleyball and they can hook you up with a job on the side just because you're increasing your network, which I think is great. So I want to pivot a little bit back to high performance and advice. So what advice would you give to a young female who is debating trying out for high performance? Because we all know as individuals, some of us just don't think we're good enough, or some of us think, you know, that's not for me. What would you do to kind of encourage that girl that is, you know, wondering, should I do it or should I not do it? Julie, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, sure. I think no matter what, I think there's no negatives of trying out. I mean, if you're on the fence, I would just go for it because even if you're not going to make the team, you're going to make friends, you're going to make connections, you're going to learn so much just from being around players that maybe you think are better than you, or you're going to realize that maybe you're at them in something else, or you're just going to learn a lot about yourself And I don't think there's anything or any reason why it wouldn't be a positive to go and just at least try out. And you really never know. Like you could get there and you could show something that the coaches see, and you didn't even think you had. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Erin, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that high performance is super competitive. And if you are interested in even like in the scope of college volleyball, it's something that you should even try out for, even if you don't make the team, because the way the week schedule goes is very similar to a college camp schedule goes. It's very busy. It's long days. It also exposes you to the competition level that you're looking toward, and you want to be able to compete with the best girls on the court. So you should expose yourself early to that and then make decisions from there as to whether it is for you or whether it's not for you. Especially the different coaching styles that you're going to encounter are not going to be very drill-like and fundamental based. It's going to be a lot of play, high intensity, constantly throughout the day. And I don't think there is really any negative in attending the camp.
Yeah, I think that's great advice too. And Rebecca, anything else to support the two of them?
They make really great points. The one thing that I would add is also, you know, as a volleyball player, if your intention is to consistently get better, even if you don't make any of the camps, or even if you're an alternative or an alternate, sorry, you get the ability to get these touches over the summer, which, you know, in certain places in upstate, you know, where I grew up, you know, HP was really the only way to play volleyball. There wasn't a lot of beach volleyball. There wasn't a lot of opportunities to play. So this is, you know, even if it's just a tryout or a few tryouts or a weekend, it's an opportunity to get more touches and to get better and to be able to play at all, you know, and I think that's worth it in and of itself.
Yeah, and I think a lot of value, right? And a great way to get better is just touches. So the more touches you get, you know, by default, you're going to get better. Quality touches, I should clarify there. So we have 2 questions left, and I think this is perfect, and it'll wrap us up right around the 6 o'clock mark. I'm curious. You guys are all young female coaches, and a lot of times young female coaches are mistaken as players. You know, whether you're walking on the court or you're helping out with warm-ups, you know, is there any advice that you would give to other young female coaches to help them stand out in those situations? Erin, you want to go?
We're all like,
I'm watching all you guys think, so.
Yes, I think when you definitely assert your voice, especially with your male refs and other refs, like you will kind of get like overlooked. People will walk past you and talk to other people right in front of you, and you're like, I'm standing right here. Like, definitely assert your voice, make eye contact, command kind of control in a sense over your team, like, and kind of like establish that power base that like kind of like just is inside of you. But I think eye contact and asserting your voice are like 2 key things when people are speaking to you, whether or not they're going to respect you or if they're going to just kind of overlook you.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, a lot of times too, in the club environment, we're dressed a little bit more relaxed, and we're walking into an all-day tournament. And as a younger player, you kind of, if you're coaching an older age group, you sometimes look very similar to the girls, especially if you're dressing like them. I don't know if that, you know, if Rebecca or Julia, if that's ever happened to you. Usually if you're a little bit on the taller side, you seem to get out of kind of that grouping with the girls. But I always think that's an interesting conversation to have as well. So,
I mean,
go ahead, Rebecca.
Oh, I don't have to.
No, please go.
Okay. So kind of to go off what Erin was saying, though, I think she made some really great points, and, you know, like asserting your voice and being authoritative. And some people, that's not their nature. And I remember specific times when I was recruiting, and I really was like out of my comfort zone. You know, I don't really know what the heck I'm doing. I was playing a year ago. Now I have to recruit you to come to this college that I'm coaching for, you know? And so, you know, a lot of what Erin was saying was, you know, assert yourself, be authoritative, even if it's not natural. And I always, even if it was uncomfortable, I'd just go up and shake their hand and be like, hi, I'm Rebecca Borquist. I'm here for, Brockport College. I'd like to speak to you. And after a little while, it gets a little bit easier, and, people do take you a little bit more seriously. It does take time, I guess, too. But yeah, just having that voice and doing it, even if it feels uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I think one of the big things and key things you said there is being uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable in the right situation is good, right? It means we're stepping outside of our comfort zone. And so many of us don't like to step outside of our comfort zone. And in the right situation, it is good to grow. And unfortunately, you do, I think, need to make yourself uncomfortable and put yourself in those situations, as long as they're still safe situations, to really help yourself grow as an individual. So my last question for the day, if you could go back in time, right, and give yourself one piece of advice as a brand new coach, what would that be? So when you started coaching, what's something that you wish someone would have told you right away that you just think would have been life-changing? I know these are tough questions too. Last part of the segment.
I'll go.
Okay.
I think it would just be to have a little more confidence, because even after all my experiences of playing, I feel like I was a little more timid to tell the girls or whoever I was coaching really just like what they needed to be doing to make themselves better. And I think if I could tell myself to just speak up a little more, that would have been something that I need to, still probably even work on, is just really speaking up a little more and having the confidence.
No, that's great advice. And Rebecca, how about you?
I think patience. I think about my first year coaching, and it was really hard because I was coaching girls who I was only 1 year. Actually, I was coaching one girl who was actually older than me, who was in college that I was coaching at. So when that was like, the first real official job I had ever got. And I just kind of like expected that because I was a player, I would get right into it and feel super good about everything. And I quickly realized that's not the case, and that, you have to build those relationships, and you have to build the trust and the respect, and just being patient with that, and knowing that, halfway through a season, if you're not exactly where you want to be, just to be patient with yourself, with the team, and that's really hard for me as a person, but being patient is definitely the advice I would give.
That's great advice too. And then Erin, last one of the day.
I think what I would have told myself earlier on, I learned from Doyle at this past HP, was don't take the game home with you. And after every game, I would give the girls a number, and they would form into breakout groups, and they would sit and talk about the game, whether we won or we learned that game. Then we didn't want it to be something that carried over into the next day, something that you're overthinking, especially because volleyball is a very technical sport. We're thinking about, is my platform right? Did I contact the ball at the correct point? Like, did I jump high enough? Did I jump in the right place? So because we're thinking about all those things all the time, and we're so technical of ourselves, and like almost to a point where it's like becoming a perfectionist, we don't want to bring that energy back into the car. We want to treat every game like its own. We want to treat every point like its own, and treat every day like its own. So whatever happened today or on this court or during this point, let's leave it on this court during this point today. And being able to move on to the next thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. And I think what we need to do after this is summarize all the great things that Bill has said. So I don't know if Bill paid you guys money or anything, but we can go ahead and get that back to him. But no, thank you guys all so much for this. I had a great time today. I learned a lot from you guys. I'm really hoping our readers and followers as well also did. Just by wrapping up, I wanted to turn it back to you for kind of one last, and it's not a question, but if you could kind of summarize your experience through high performance as a player and a coach, is there anything that you'd want to kind of leave behind and share with the group?
I'll go. So like I was saying, some of the best experiences I've ever had was as a player and a coach with HP. I'll give a small anecdote. We went to Tulsa, Oklahoma in 2018. Brian Hurler, Caitlin McDonald, and I, and we all coached the I'm forgetting what team now. The youth team, sorry. And it was the most fun we've ever had. It was, just the relationships that we made with each other, the camaraderie of the team. I think at the end of that, there was some sort of music video made by the team. And it was just one of the most fun experiences I've ever had as a coach. So there's a lot of fun involved.
That's awesome. Erin or Julie, you want to go next?
I'll go. I think that it really is a ton of fun. It's very competitive. And because we are athletes, like our fun is in competition, and like it's literally the perfect storm of like whether or not you make a team or which team you make, like it really doesn't matter. But the process of it is really fun. And I think it really is something worth everyone being exposed to at some point during their playing career. And I definitely highly recommend.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's great advice too. And then Julia.
Yeah, I totally agree with what both of you just said again. But just enjoy the experience, like have fun with it no matter what. Like even if you're just at the tryouts, like even if you only make it to one part of the tryouts, like just have fun with it. And that's the whole point of like playing sports, is to have fun. But having fun, yeah, just having fun. Just have fun.
That's huge too, right? We're doing this because we're competitive, but it's also to have fun. You should enjoy what you're doing. So I think that is great advice. So I did lie to you earlier. I told you we were done with questions, but we did get one more question on Facebook. So, and I want to make sure we kind of give everyone a voice here. As kind of coaches and players, how do you best learn? Are you really an audio learner? Are you a visual learner? Do you learn by physically going through the motions? And how does that translate into how you coach? Think about that one too. Erin, you want to go?
Yeah, I'm very visual learner, so I explain things visually, and I often connect what I'm talking about. I analogize things a lot, because I have to kind of be able to imagine what is happening and why it's happening. So that's really kind of influenced the analogies I've used have really like taken a liking to my teams, because that's kind of usually how we bond. Like I might relate things to songs that are popular or different like figures like that are popular. And so like that, but the visual aspect and like imagining something definitely translates and helps me play. And I think it's also helped a bunch of my teams play.
Yeah, I think that's great. I like how you incorporate the songs and kind of what's happening. I think that's cool. How about you, Rebecca?
Really similar to what Erin said. I learned visually. So, whenever I was being coached, I always had to see it before I felt like I could really do it. And so when I coach now, I certainly use that a lot, because I feel as though a lot of athletes are, in order to understand, what you're asking them to do with their body. So whether it's me or another player demonstrating, that does take up a lot of the way that I coach, in that, you want someone to be a good example, and then finding that, and then being able to show them what exactly you want that skill to look like.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then Julia.
Yeah, same. I would say I'm definitely a visual learner. Watching so much film, even just like watching other people play. I've always been like, when it came to coaching or playing, like I'm always watching how other people do things, how they do things better than me, how I could be better. Even just watching myself on film, like it's definitely like visual is how I learn everything.
Would you say that you've learned more by watching film, or learned more in practice or gameplay? Where do you feel kind of excelled the most?
I think maybe watching it on film, because sometimes you don't realize what you're being told to do, and you don't realize that the mistakes you're making, and then you see yourself doing them and you're like, oh, I get it now. I see why I'm hitting it totally out of the court, or it makes sense now. So I don't know, I think probably watching myself on film or
Yeah.
showing people things on film.
And Rebecca, are you different? Do you agree? Do you follow the kind of same philosophies as Julia?
Yeah, definitely very similar. You're like, your coach is telling you to do something. You're like, I'm doing it. And then you watch it on film and you're like, no, I'm not actually at all. That's why, I'm hitting the ball into the net when I'm trying to hit a cut shot or something. So yeah, definitely film. Film helps a lot.
Yeah. Aaron, would you agree as well? So film's kind of the way to go, or do you feel that really the repetitions in practice or just a life game help you as a player?
As a player, I think it was definitely a combination of film and practice. I was even sometimes more excited to practice than I was to actually play in the game, because I was like, okay, like I have a chance to get it right a few times and to get confident. Where in the game, if I don't feel that confident doing something, I'm probably not going to commit to doing it the correct way. I might default to like a muscle memory way of doing something, which is usually not the correct way to do it.
Confidence is huge. So yes, it's good to build that in practice. So awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate you guys joining me today. Certainly all of us are busy. And with you guys all having full-time jobs, it's been great to kind of take the time out and to kind of share your experiences with the region. So we greatly appreciate it. And that is it for today. So thank you guys all from Jiva. And we hope you guys stay safe. Thanks.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you.
Thank you.